It was a welcome sight for the boating fraternity of Lake Macquarie, but for the owner of these powerboats from Toronto, it's been a long time coming. They've been forced to call Newcastle Marina home for the last month, caught out by the bridge closure.
One fellow had 3 yachts at the boat show. He tried to bring them back to the lake, couldn't. He finished up in Newcastle Harbour at $100 a day each.
The Boat Owners Association says there's been a devastating economic impact, many cruising yachts bypassing Lake Macquarie, while commercial boats have been stuck inside the lake for a month.
It's inconvenienced everybody, not just recreational, but we have charter operators as members of the boat owners, and they've been heavily impacted on, cost them lots of money.
And many are now seeking compensation.
The RTA is more than happy to sit down with them and look at their claims.
And along with plenty of others, the Boating Association is calling for an alternative.
The ultimate, of course, would be a tunnel. No disruptions to anybody.
For the next 5 days, the bridge will only be open to boats 4 times a day.
Neighbours and ex-servicemen Kevin Maker and Patrick Sheehan now see themselves as brothers in arms once more, joining forces to protect their property from thieves.
They're gutless, aren't they, when they go pinching off elderly people.
Both men's cars were targeted on Tuesday night, just outside their home units in East Maitland. The flaps to the fuel tanks were prised open and the petrol siphoned off.
It's so ridiculous, that they took the petrol and they throw the caps away, they just don't care.
Between them, Kevin and Patrick say they lost about $50 worth of fuel, but the incident has cost them much more, peace of mind.
Has it meant?
Oh, it has. It sort of upset me a lot because last night I just couldn't sleep. I was sort of edgy and getting up and checking.
They say police have been helpful, agreeing to beef up nighttime patrols around the area. But the men will also be keeping a closer watch, Dad's Army style.
Paddy's an ex-Navy man. I was in the Army, but it's too late to be walking around being a sentry.
Just looking after one another, looking after the cars, because that's the only way we're going to keep the hoons out.
Natasha Bayersdorf, NBN News. The Dungog area is hot property for Hunter Water. It's just purchased a 24-hectare parcel at Tilligra for around $1 million, the latest in a long line of acquisitions.
We've been buying land there for 25 years and we'll be buying land there for another 25 years. And it's all about a potential fourth source for the Lower Hunter.
Chichester and Grahamstown dams, as well as the Tomago sandbeds, are still serving the region well, but the Water Authority wants to be prepared. It's purchased around a third of the land it would need, a possible Dungog dam still decades away.
And the timing of that will depend on how the Hunter grows, which we see a lot of promise for growth, but also we're more aggressively looking at recycling stormwater and effluent for our customers.
The Dungog properties aren't sitting idly by either. Hunter Water leases them out for farming. Natasha Bayersdorf, NBN News.
The final sound and lighting checks may give you the impression of a rock concert. Well, that's not far off. Harvest 2005 is no traditional church service or mass. It's helping change the face of Christianity, jazzing it up if you like. Among the top music headliners, Darlene Check from Hillsong in Sydney. She'll be joined on stage by Greg Laurie, a Southern Californian pastor and evangelist.
A harvest event is designed specifically for a person who may not necessarily go to church, and I want them to know they're welcome at this event.
Harvest filled the entertainment centre to capacity in 2003 with 26,000 people over 4 nights. Even the overflow halls were chock-a-block. And while the nightly concerts and the Saturday matinee will cost $500,000 to produce, surprisingly, entry is free.
Well, I hope it will lay to rest any concern that we're in it for the money, because the fact is that churches here in the Hunter region and in the United States, specifically our church, we're investing in this event so we can make it free to a person who is coming.
Harvest 2005 begins at 7:30 tonight. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
With a former TV cameraman for a father, Megan Jones has never been far from the spotlight. In A Day at a Time, we saw a snapshot of her life, happy times at home, the joy of her first day at school, and the terrible agony of cancer treatment.
You can see in a couple of shots I'm making dirty faces at the camera because I didn't really like the camera, but now I don't know. I suppose it was a good experience, and it's good to have something to be able to look back on.
Now 17, Megan has in fact looked back on her battle with cancer as part of her studies for the HSC. She says it's given her a new appreciation of what her little body went through.
It's interesting to find out because when I was little I didn't understand much of it, and when you go back now and you can actually understand and know the drugs and everything that actually went on.
Megan from the start was just virtually grew up having to accept that she was going to hospital and the drugs, and she just had to put up with it.
First diagnosed at age 2 with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, in the end Megan endured 5 years of chemotherapy.
It's because I don't remember half of it really. I remember mostly the good things. I don't remember where.
These days there are plenty of good times. In between study and time with family, Megan relaxes by playing the piano. It's important, with the HSC coming up soon and more study planned.
Next year I want to go to uni over at Newcastle, and I want to do an early childhood course so I can do preschool and stuff with little kids.
It doesn't seem that long ago that she was just a child herself. Just ask Dad.
It's really a pleasure but a shock on a poor bloke to discover their children are growing up, and it's nice to know they are growing up.
Tomorrow night, the face of the 1997 Children's Cancer Telethon, how Hayley Tull and the others made a difference.
Coffs Harbour has really turned on great conditions for the championships, with the sunshine and waves in good supply.
The conditions have been really good. Today's been fantastic early. Yesterday was fantastic. The waves have picked up a little bit today, and we're expecting an increase in swell over the weekend for the final.
The state titles are also the biggest of their kind in Australia, attracting 284 top juniors. And while some board riders might be as young as 12, there's still a lot riding on a good performance, including a spot in the national championships in Tasmania.
There's a lot of kids here who have got, big sponsorships and whatnot, and there's really quite a bit of pressure on a lot of the young kids to perform.
Lauren Bladwell, NBN News.
Two former Newcastle players responsible for 2 round 2 goals. That's 2 very good reasons for the Jets to be at their absolute best this weekend. Robbie Middleby and Matthew Bingley seem to be settling well into the Sydney FC scene, Middleby in particular quick to pick up the club's superior attitude.
Definitely everyone lifts to play against us, and I think a lot of Newcastle boys were touted to come to Sydney, and I think they'll be up for the game.
Bingley's not so confident and can see the potential in the new-look Newcastle side.
I've watched them a few times, and with the calibre that they've got in their squad, you're expecting a lot more from them, and whether or not it's going to happen this week, I don't know, but we'll be looking at a pretty tough game, so we'll have to be on our toes.
Jets coach Richard Money will be doing all he can to make sure it does, with the bonus of an almost fully fit side at his fingertips. The only cloud is hanging over striker Ante Milicic.
He's improving day by day, and it's going to be right to the wire as to whether he plays or not. But the good news is that he thinks he has a chance.
Sydney striker Dwight Yorke is on his way back from World Cup commitments in Costa Rica and is expected to play in the game on Sunday. It'll be a reunion of sorts for him and Richard Money, who spent time together back at Premier League club Aston Villa.
So it'll be good to see him and nice to shake his hand and give him a kick or two in the shins at the same time.
"800 riders, 800 bikes and 800 pairs of feet pedalled furiously out of Newcastle this morning, and it was all for a very worthy cause.
I just want to have some quality time with my son and raise some charity at the same time.
In the 10 years since the Hunter Bike Run began, $275,000 has been raised for charity, and this year's proceeds will go to the Hunter Medical Research Institute for studies into childhood cancers and melanomas. Police concerns over the age of some participants almost spoilt the fun.
And to get here on the day and have one police officer tell us that we weren't allowed to go in the ride was very disappointing.
They took part nonetheless, raising $200 for their efforts. Fire crews were called to the school at 10:30 last night following reports a shed was on fire. 2 ride-on mowers, a barbecue and gardening equipment were destroyed and sporting equipment damaged by heat. 2 gas bottles were found at the scene. Waratah police are investigating whether the blaze was deliberately lit and linked to a graffiti attack on the school. Paint was splattered on walls, doors and windows of the canteen, the staff room, assembly hall and playground. Empty paint cans were left behind. The attack has sparked community outrage.
As an ex-parent, I'm absolutely ropeable. I am so angry. It's lucky I didn't catch somebody that was up here.
After the disappointment of last year, the question remained, could the Northern Blues rise to the occasion this time around? They certainly started the right way. Former Knights player Leo Denver set up a man who's bound for the NRL club next year in Chris Bailey. No one saw the ball that Jared O'Doherty slipped, save for Garth Ross, and he only had eyes for the try line. Grand finals are often won on defence, but the Blues threatened to get carried away. When they concentrated on football, though, it was pretty to watch. Pace and pinpoint passing had Andrew Spicer over. They loved attacking the edges, and before half-time, the Blues had their third through Dane Queenan and a 12-6 lead. West began the second half a little like the first, with Ross racing over for a second to level things. But running with the breeze and Jai Hill crossing for a double, the climb back got a whole lot steeper for West. The best saved for last. After Adam Brown's break, Dinnever applied the perfect finish for retiring coach Peter Walsh as the title headed to the Bay. A sea of Blue fans flooding the field and sure to party back at the Bay for a while yet.
In 1948, Arthur Morris outscored Bradman to help Australia clinch the Ashes at Headingley. Speaking from his Hunter Valley home today, the 83-year-old says while Ponting's boys will be bitterly disappointed, they'll eventually see the bigger picture.
I think it's good for the game. You know, it was a bit one-sided there for a few years, and I think the international game needs another winner, and that's as it appears to be England.
Over more than 40 test matches, Morris averaged 46 runs and believes the Australians should now relax and take stock and try not to watch too much television in the next couple of weeks.
You play a game, it's like any sport, you play a game, you do your best to win. If you get beaten, you accept it and leave it at that. But that's when the critics come in, and those who want to change all the team and pick a new 11.
Although seeing the loss as a positive for the game overall, Arthur remains true blue.
Well, we can hope for is that their stay on top will be very brief.
Paul Lobb, NBN News. This Hunter Valley pet shop has all sorts of cute and colourful birds, and then there's this one. The nervous father-to-be is controlling the airspace around the car park where his equally jittery partner has laid 4 eggs, and anyone who gets too close becomes a target.
Not too many complaints, which is good so far, and he hasn't hurt anyone as yet.
The shop has drawn up a sign to warn customers, but even putting that out is a mission in itself, not to mention the nerves of steel of our cameraman.
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. He won't hurt you. You stay clear of him and everything will be fine.
No matter where you live, keep an eye out for these antsy little aviators for the next few weeks. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
1,200 ecstasy tablets seized, 8 people arrested for supplying illicit drugs, and 3 Newcastle pubs closed down for 72 hours. Operation Derrima shed new light on illegal activities inside some of our most popular watering holes, prompting the Newcastle Liquor Accord to take action.
This is the aftermath of what happened after the closures in regard to a request through the Liquor Accord of Newcastle to get some awareness training.
Today, 150 publicans, bar staff and security guards attended the inaugural Drug Awareness Forum.
This is the first one that's just dealing with the drug situation, which obviously in the events of the last couple of months has been important. It's educational, and it's educational for us and the staff.
On the agenda, what publicans can do to deter drug use on their premises, how to spot patrons who are drug users or dealers, and the effects of certain drugs such as sweating, teeth grinding and consuming lots of water.
That's probably the most important thing, if they have an understanding of how drugs affect people and what the signs are. And the next thing that comes from that is to report that information to the police at the time.
The forum was also designed to build a stronger partnership between police and hotel staff. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. It was Australia's most destructive earthquake, killing 13 people and rocking the city of Newcastle. Hamilton was a major casualty of the '89 quake, shopfronts crashing down, along with the Newcastle Workers' Club. And while it was a devastating day in Newcastle's history, for structural engineers across the world it was a major wake-up call, an important turning point in revising earthquake codes and design requirements.
Yeah, I think it was very important. It certainly was a catalyst for everyone to have a real good look at what we do with earthquakes, particularly in the Newcastle area.
This week the city is playing host to 250 engineers for the Australian Structural Engineering Conference, and building guidelines for earthquakes is one of the main topics. And they've learnt a lot since 1989, using durable, non-corrosive materials equally as important as structural design.
When we had our earthquake in '89, one of the main problems was that even though a lot of the buildings were generally fairly well designed, a lot of the damage was caused by the failure of components that had corroded.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
You can only play the hand you're dealt, but this is one game of patience that's really testing Gary Gilmore's resolve. Dealt a stiff hand 6 years ago in regards to his liver, the former Test great is now listed as a high priority for a transplant, with most days now offering a different challenge or another blood transfusion.
I could be in hospital this afternoon. Wouldn't have a clue. But it's as you said, it's pretty hard to cope with.
It's a far cry from his days in the Australian cricket team, when he played it hard both on and off the field. And many of those teammates will reunite tomorrow night in Newcastle and later this month in Sydney to honour their mate and raise some funds in the process.
It is very humbling. I've never been one to put my hand out for anything, and it's a bit embarrassing.
Both are sell-out functions, and Gilmore's just hoping he doesn't get the call in the middle of them. But when it's all said and done, it's his family he hopes to repay.
Like all the kids play sport, but I just can't get there. Hopefully I'll catch up with it all if I get off the table.
Until then, he'll just play it how he sees it. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
It's a common sight up and down the coast at the moment. Trawlers lie idle at wharves, while inside the co-op, the freezers are packed with cheap imports. Prawn cutlets from Thailand, crab claws from Japan, and shelled, deveined and even cooked prawns from Vietnam and China, all for about $10 a kilo cheaper than the local product.
We just can't compete. I mean, a lot of our prawn farms up the north coast in desperate trouble.
To a price-conscious marketplace, the imports are having a big impact, so much so that fishermen won't even leave the wharf unless a good catch is guaranteed. They say the problem is compounded by rising fuel costs.
Within 2 months of these Vanamai prawns coming into Australia, our industry collapsed completely. My boat's been tied up ever since. We had to retrench our crew.
Fishermen are pleading with consumers to buy Australian and say tougher labelling laws are needed to help people buy with certainty.
If everybody does it, if the Woolworths, the Coles and all that put on country of origin, they are then telling the public exactly where the product comes from. We're very much in favour of that.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
At Council's Administration Centre today, the focus was on the future rather than the sudden departure of the General Manager. Mayor Greg Piper calling for teamwork, a missing factor he believes contributed to the breakdown of his working relationship with Ken Holt over the past 18 months.
There are a number of areas where I had some concern and we could not reconcile those issues.
The key difference of opinion was over management of staff.
The intention of the council in making, in raising this with the general manager and bringing this to a head, was for the betterment of the staff, and hence the council.
The resignation of Ken Holt before the end of his current contract will cost the council $140,000.
In terms of most people's income, a payout of that order might be significant. Really, for the benefits that I perceive that we will receive, it should not be seen as a major issue.
And while Ken Holt is gone, changes he initiated like the customer service centre will remain, and that may not be his only legacy.
We will continue to implement initiatives that came from Ken Holt. He has many very positive attributes.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
On the eve of their season opener, the Hunter Pirates found themselves on home court for the first time this season. Tomorrow night, it'll be the Sydney Kings greeting them, and as co-captain this season, Brad Davidson can't wait to lead the side.
I want to beat them. I haven't beaten them in 4 years, so it's a big thing for me. We've got them twice in a week, so for me, I want to get the Kings early on in the season.
After all the disruptions his squad has endured pre-season, coach Adrian Hurley found the first round bye a blessing in disguise. Despite the preparation, he couldn't think of a better way to tip off the season.
I think it's good. I think, go against the defending champions. They're the measuring stick.
Mike Helms will start off the bench in his first NBL game, while fellow American Odell Bradley has surprised everyone with his recovery from an ankle injury. Several weeks ahead of schedule, he'll suit up for the season starter.
It's been forever, man, just playing against the teammates and all the time. And other than the blitz, we always play against each other in the preseason game, so it's definitely good to get ready to get this going.
Co-captain Ben Milmuth and Australian boomer Russell Hinder will join Bradley, Davidson and new recruit Aaron Trahair as the starting five. Jim Callanan, NBN News. Oscar Warrior shocked more than a few to stride home and salute last year, but back-to-back wins would mark an even bigger boil-over. And not just for the fact no other has won 2 Camerons on the trot for 35 years.
I don't think he's going as well as he was last year, and I don't think he can beat these up-and-comers.
By those, he means Binding, Collate and Mr Celebrity, who also shape as early favourites for the Group 1 Epsom in Sydney next month. Outside of those, and it's getting much harder to pick a winner.
We haven't had 3 as good in the 1 races we got this year with these up-and-coming sprinters Binding, Collate and Mr Celebrity.
On Thursday, the Newcastle Cup holds sway and the Tim Martin-trained Storm Hill will be hoping for his Grafton Cup winning form as he builds towards the Group 1 Metropolitan in Sydney.
Won very well at Rosehill at the weekend. He's declared a rider in Huey Bowman. Timmy intends to start the horse at this stage.
A colourful cast of characters today assembled to invite the region to what is shaping as one of Newcastle's biggest day of festivities. Organisers of the Civic Park-based Matara, the neighbouring Derby Street Fair, SWIG, the wine festival for the Mater Hospital Cancer Care Appeal, and the National Maritime Festival, joining forces for Festival Day in the city on Sunday, October 9.
The opportunity to extend the Maritime Festival from Honeysuckle all the way to the pilot station, and then naturally the link with Matara through Civic Gates to Matara and then to Derby Street Fair. The fit was perfect, so we decided to go with it.
And by sharing the crowd around, organisers believe the Matara Grand Parade will be one of the biggest spectacles in years.
We've also got lots and lots of participants and companies that are coming in to be part of it because there are so many people. We are looking at least 2,000 participants in the parade this year.
And Newcastle Council is already prepared to handle a huge influx of people and vehicles on the day.
We're going to make as much parking available as possible through the car parks. They'll all be open, and of course public transport is a means of getting in here.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
Alan Robinson has ridden more winners than he can recall, but yesterday's feat was something special.
It's a day you remember. You can't remember all your riding days, but that'll be one I'll remember. It was a good day.
He backed up to ride in 6 races today, but unfortunately the good fortune didn't follow him. There were plenty of punters trying their luck on day 1 of the Spring Carnival, one of the most hard-fought contests in the Glamour Stakes. A little filly threatened to steal the show, but in the end style and experience won out. On Ladies' Day, the track's leading lady was back. Gay Waterhouse had starters in several races, 2 including the favourite Mr Celebrity in the Cameron.
I like coming here because one is one of the great tracks in Australia. It's so expansive and it's a very fair track. I've had a lot of success here over the years.
But it wasn't to be Gay's Day. Collate outpowering Mr Celebrity to take the Cameron, with outsider Cincinnati Gal coming in 3rd.
In the Hunter Vineyards, the first growth of the season is starting to appear. While the next 6 weeks will determine just how good it is, the Hunter Valley Vineyard Association has one specific order, and it's not a bumper crop.
We're certainly looking for a year of quality. That's what the Hunter's all about. We don't necessarily want a year with a large crop.
At the moment, the Australian market is awash with wine because of a big increase in the amount of grapes being grown. But there's also been industry consolidation as big players like Foster's buy up competitors to stake their claim for a bigger share of the marketplace. But against that backdrop, the Hunter industry is managing to build on its strengths.
We have a large number of visitations of tourists coming to the area. We're recognised for the production of our clean and friendly and consumer-friendly and food-friendly wines, great flavour, etc. And so there's quite a high demand for Hunter Valley wine.
Aside from a summer with well-timed rainfall, Hunter producers say the only thing that could help them is for the value of the Australian dollar to drop against the US currency to improve the returns from their export campaigns. Gary Blair, NBN News.
So, look, it's high time that the department had another look at this. We believe it is suitable.
The 19-year-old was flown to Newcastle's John Hunter Hospital, suffering a neck injury after this morning's crash. He'd been in a gator vehicle similar to this one when it overturned. According to agricultural equipment instructors, many accidents could be avoided through proper training in the use of four-wheeled vehicles.
People think it's just like a little car, that it can't tip over, but with its the wheels so close together and so compact, it actually tips over quite easily.
Quad bike accidents are now taking over from tractors as the biggest killers on farms, simply because riders don't know the basics. At the Hunter Valley's Tokal Agricultural College, each of this year's 160 students must complete quad bike training. Bob Dunn believes the instruction is essential for all farm workers, even those who've been riding quad bikes for years.
Yeah, I've rolled quads numerous times, but yeah, lucky I got away with it. But some people aren't as fortunate.
Played on the Knights' cherished home ground, it had all the atmosphere of a first-grade grand final. The Maryland cheer squad was on song. So too the side, number 1 Kevin Davison leading the charge. At times it seemed the sizeable Sydney siders would outmuscle Maryland, but the number 1 had all the answers. And team spirit to boot. Maryland 11-point winners in the end and undisputed school legends. In the under-14s Buckley Shield, last year's runners-up Hunter Sports High started strongly against Sydney side the Hills Sports High. Fusaya Ayu, the first to break through. Another try just minutes later took the half-time score to 10-0. Hunter continued to dominate in the second stanza, posting another 3 unanswered tries. The final one just seconds before the bell, sparking more celebrations. Consider yourself a bit of a top gun? Well, this is where the flight path begins for many aspiring pilots. It's Williamtown's fighter world, a place which often ignites a passion for aviation. And today was no different. Hundreds of students from 12 high schools visited the centre for the School Careers Day, organised by the Williamtown Rotary Club.
This effort here for Williamtown Club is to show the air industry and its associated industries as best we can to students who don't have the opportunity normally to come and have a look-see.
And it seems some trades are crying out for young people due to skills shortages, particularly in aircraft maintenance, engineering and mechanics. While the University of Newcastle no longer offers aviation, recruitment experts from Hunter TAFE and the Australian Defence Force advise students about courses and careers. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Given the financial history of the Newcastle Knights over its 18 years, merging with a strong financial partner has grown from a possibility to the best option of ensuring long-term success. Negotiations with powerful licensed club Wests Leagues began with a memorandum of understanding 2 months ago and has now reached a point where a blueprint to a partnership has been defined. In simple terms, Wests Leagues would take control of commercial aspects, from sponsorships, marketing, through to stadium rights for game days. In return, the Knights would receive an annual lump sum to fund and control its football operations without interference and on a playing field level to that of other NRL clubs. Under this plan, it's believed the integrity of current boards would remain. But the real question now is how they would power share under this arrangement.
This proposal is the first of its kind seen in the NRL, but you'd imagine old business rules will still apply. The group at most financial risk should be the one with most to say, and under this proposal, that's Wests.
At present, the football club is overseen by the Knights-appointed CEO Ken Conway, but speculation on whether he would remain is just that. What is clear, however, there will be no forced redundancies from Knights office staff if the deal goes ahead. Jim Callanan, NBN News. If you went by looks alone, you would have thought import Odell Bradley was no chance of playing tomorrow night, while Mitch Selwood had all the hallmarks of someone who could have played today. Dig a little deeper and you find it's the latter who'll miss out tomorrow as he continues recovery from a dislocated kneecap.
It happened so easy in the first place, it can happen easily again. So I think just another week in the weight room and just making sure their leg's strong and keep that patella in there tight, it'll be right.
Bradley, meanwhile, will suit up after resting his ankle for the past 2 days to take on a team everyone loves to play.
Yeah, they'll be up for the game against the Kings, and I think we've got a point to prove. We've got to go out and prove that the win the other night against the Kings wasn't a fluke, and that we can do that again.
What a day for Hunter soccer, with Craig Johnston, one of 400 people recognised today by the Australian Football Federation's Hall of Fame. His parents, Colin and Dorothy, today accepting an award of distinction on his behalf. It should fit nicely alongside the some 5 English championships, 3 charity shields and European Cups he won as a player at Liverpool in the 1980s. Administrator and historian Harry Hetherington was named in the Roll of Honour, while 1956 Olympian Bruce Morrow, who made his name at Wallsend, and one-time Australian captain Ali Cameron were also recognised.
First-year apprentice boilermaker Michael Fofolia says he'd always planned to go to university because he didn't see a future in the trades.
I didn't see the trade as like up to standards or something like that. I thought most people go out to uni and that's where the good jobs are.
But a conversation with a very successful businessman soon changed his mind, and it's a change he doesn't regret.
Because I get paid to train, instead of forking out money for my own training and not have the certainty of being employed.
A lot of my friends are saying that you're better off going to uni, they teach you more stuff at uni.
I think still there is the perception that you've got to be smart to go to uni and you don't have to be smart to go to TAFE, and that certainly isn't the case.
It's these perceptions schools across the country are addressing with the help of careers advisors, and slowly but surely the message is filtering through.
A lot of people say that, like, oh, if you go do a trade, you're not that smart or whatever that. But like with some people, it just benefits them to do a hands-on trade.
And we really aren't pushing a pathway at all, whether at university or TAFE or work. We try to make it that it is effective and it is very much a positive to go to any of those destinations.
While trades are becoming more attractive, there's still plenty of work needed to make up for the damage done in the 1980s and 1990s by businesses themselves. It was during those years that trainee trimming became the norm, and today more than 20,000 workers are needed to fill the gaps.
Industry also had to meet globalisation and competitive influences, which meant that they had to cut some costs in places, and part of that meant that there was a bit of a loss of apprenticeship training as well.
For those willing to put in the hard work, there are rewards, and tomorrow night we introduce you to some of the success stories.
This is probably one of the most unusual events to hold attention in Centre Ring at Muswellbrook Showground. Inside these marquees is the Mining and Energy Exhibition. It's only the third time Muswellbrook has hosted the event since it began in 1998, and it has captured the attention of the Upper Hunters coal and power generation sectors.
We're sold out with exhibition space. We've got 233 exhibitors. Many have come a long distance. We've got exhibitors from Poland, the Philippines, many interstate, even someone from the USA.
The three-day exhibition is a veritable supermarket for the industries to meet with their service providers.
It's amazing how many small and medium-sized enterprises contribute very greatly to the mining, engineering and power generation industries, and many of those are on show today, and then partnerships will begin at this exhibition that go long into the future.
It's also provided a financial benefit for another industry, the Upper Hunters tourism and hospitality sectors.
I understand that you can't get accommodation within 50 kilometres radius of Muswellbrook, and of course when people come to this area who haven't been here before, they'll be attracted by the beauty of the countryside and by our wineries to come back again.
And being a mining and energy exhibition, there are some big toys to be seen, like this Western Australian-built six-wheel drive multi-purpose vehicle. Gary Blair, NBN News.
While Belmont Towers, with its lake views, may be a great place to live, its 8-storey physique is loathed by many who feel it's out of place compared to the surrounding low-level dwellings. But plans for another tall building almost next door have barely raised an eyebrow. As a result, the council has recommended approval for this $9 million 6-storey complex that will house 12 units.
I think this is a particularly well-designed building, and I think that when we see more of these along there, people will be generally very happy with it. It's certainly going to be good for revitalising the visual appearance of Belmont, but also very good for the commercial centre.
The full council is expected to approve the plan next week. Meantime, Cardiff Junior AFL players and their parents filled the public gallery at the Lake Macquarie Council last night. The club fears that despite its most successful season ever, it may be thrown off its home ground at Manila Park because the state-owned land is to be redeveloped. The council is helping the club look at other locations. And council also gave the tick to stages 8 to 12 of the North Wallara estate south of Swansea, paving the way for an additional 164 homes to be built on top of the 117 lots already approved. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It doesn't sound like the most highly sought-after job, but it's certainly an important one, inspecting 470 septic tanks to locate any failing systems, leaking human waste into Tilligarry Creek. So far the results, like the subject, not pretty.
We've currently inspected over 300 and we found over 20% are failing quite significantly. Also, some people are letting horses and cattle and backing trucks up onto some of the disposal areas, which is ruining the septic system.
14 oyster growers have been hit hard, unable to harvest their product in the affected area, with some oysters testing positive for traces of human waste and a human stomach virus. One positive, though, is that it's been confined to one section of the creek, according to new tests carried out by the New South Wales Food Authority.
The good news is that most of the samples came back okay, and except for Zone 5B, which is already closed. So it's good that the viruses aren't any further down the creek.
Port Stephens Council is now looking to the future, hiring an independent consultant to complete a feasibility study looking at options for the Bob's Farm salt ash area, such as a sewerage system. But it would come at a huge cost. There's 470 blocks of land to be connected to a sewer, and at $40,000 per block, that's about $19 million. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.